Nate Johnson will contribute in a big way in 2024.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Today's episode, we'll discuss the impact of one of the newest lawsuits, the House versus the NCAA. The Vandyboys take down the Vols in Hoover. What impact does that have? But first, Nate Johnson will contribute in a big, big way in 2024. So for right now, Diego Pavia will, for all intents and purposes, be quarterback one at Vandy. Okay, we know that. We've discussed that, and I think that's still going to happen. But here's the thing with Nate Johnson. He presents a very unique and important skill set in regards to Vandy's identity on offense. And what we discussed as their identity on offense is that they want to feature the run. They want to feature the quarterback in the run game. The running backs are going to be a huge part of that, obviously. They're going to drive the success of that identity, but the quarterbacks can't get involved if the running backs aren't strong in the run game. So I think with Nate Johnson, his skill set is very much fitting in what this offense presents. The only thing is he's still very raw in a lot of those skill sets. And for a large portion of what Tim Beck's scheme is, he's not quite as good as Diego Pavia is at this point. So I still think there's a lot of development to be had, but I still think there's a lot of potential there with Nate Johnson, which is why I think there's going to be some things there for him to be able to allow him to contribute early and often in this scheme this season. And what do I mean by that? So I could see a world where Tim Beck will have a package for Nate Johnson. And there will be a time where he's going to have to take reins due to an injury because the quarterbacks are going to run. They are going to be involved in this thing. And Vandy's offensive line hasn't really gelled quite yet. It's still really, really new, a really new group with a new coach. So there's going to be some times where Pavia probably takes some hits that he shouldn't. So Nate Johnson is going to have to be ready. So there's a package that I think that's going to benefit what Nate Johnson does well. Some quick screen stuff, probably some first level RPOs, some definite quarterback runs. He can throw sprint out games. So it's not just going to be like a one trick pony like Tim Tebow was for Florida his freshman year in 2006. I think it's going to be a little bit more than that. Whereas Nate Johnson comes in, he can do a bunch of different things. So defenses can't really beat in on him. So this is going to be an interesting situation to watch though, because like I said, because of that skill set, I think you're going to see him in some situations where you normally wouldn't see a two quarterback system, but in the world of football, and it's trickled down from the NFL to college and now even to high school, you need two really good quarterbacks. And Blaise Berlowitz is a really good quarterback too, and he could definitely function if there's any sort of long-term need for a new starting quarterback due to injury to Diego Pavia, who for all intents and purposes, like I said, is going to be quarterback one. But I think Nate Johnson is going to be kind of that X factor, in an offense that's going to feature the run, ball control, option game, things like that, with the occasional throw the ball down the field. I think you're going to see a world where Nate Johnson is going to be able to do that. And the reason why he's going to contribute in a big, big way is the fact that he provides a spark. He's electric. He's fast. He's explosive. He can do a bunch of different things. So, defenses are going to have to prepare for that, and he can hurt you. So that's what's going to happen. He's going to take over at some point. There's going to be some game on the schedule down the road. Maybe it's South Carolina for the bowl game. Diego Pavia is going to get banged up. It's going to be late in the season. He's going to be accumulating a lot of hits. He's a tough he's a tough player, but playing an SEC schedule is going to be tough on him because he ain't in the Sun Belt anymore. Yeah, he ain't in the Sun Belt anymore. So it's going to be a tough go on him. So he may miss some time, and there's going to be a series where 17, you're going to have to lead us, man. That's what Nate Johnson's going. Hey, Nate, you're going to have to go get it for us now. Let's go. And I think he has the capability to do it. As he learns and develops, especially, I think there's going to be a lot of room for growth. And he's going to have to be that relief pitcher that comes in when Vandy needs a spark, comes in when Pavia is banged up, or, if you just need a changeup, where I guess that kind of fits in with the spark part. But like, if you need a changeup, he's going to be the guy that can do it. He can run on the outside. He can run a lot of that zone read stuff. He can sprint out pass, bootlegs, anything that requires a good amount of speed from the quarterback. I think Nate Johnson's going to be able to handle that. So I'm very excited to kind of see how this unfolds, because I think that's very possible that could happen. And I think it's not out of the realm of possibility for sure that he would be a massive contributor. I mean, he's going to have to be, like I said, he's going to have to be up to speed. He's going to have to, he developed and all these reps that he took, he was de facto quarterback one in spring practice. He took a lot of those reps. Blaise Berlowitz took a lot of those reps too. But I think with his skill set, I think he's got to be the number 2 guy, and he has a chance to become there's a battle going to be for a quarterback 1 and quarterback 2 and quarterback 3. I mean, there's a chance that Nate Johnson just could be the outright quarterback 2. Like, he could develop over the course of fall camp, and as his role kind of grows throughout the season, I think you could see him develop into a quarterback that could function in the system long term when Diego Pavia leaves, whether it's week 2 with injury or when he graduates. Like, I could see Nate Johnson stepping in, and not much is lost. Now the freshmen are going to factor in once they get on campus, St. Hilaire and Muschamp, and we'll see kind of where they fall in the pecking order. But this is going to be like, when you look at position groups, like this is going to be the most fascinating for me. And when I talked about this with Kurt Page, he kind of felt the same way of this quarterback room is the strongest it's been in a really long time. Because I think you have a coordinator that finally understands the skill sets that he has in that room, which I don't think was the case a year ago. You had some really good quarterbacks and a coordinator that didn't know what to do with them, and a head coach that I think he was just so far above the program that he didn't recognize it until it hit him square in the face that he needed that stuff was happening. So you had a trickle down effect from that. You had receivers, electric playmaking receivers. You had a receiving core that rivaled anybody in the country as far as the starters go. I don't think they were incredibly deep as far as talent goes, but they rivaled a lot of receiving rooms in the SEC or in the country even. And those guys left because there was no direction. There was no, you would throw guys in, AJ Swan would come in, don't really know what to do with him because you don't really know exactly what he flourishes at. You're just kind of running your system and hoping whoever you selected that week is going to be able to do it. Ken Seals obviously lost in power on I guess the old idiom would be lost his fastball a little bit. I think he was kind of beat up some and just couldn't quite push the ball down the field like he used to. Kind of evaporated as what Ken Seals used to be. And I it's a myriad of things, but I just don't know that there was a whole understanding of okay, AJ Swan does this. He fits in the puzzle like this, and this is what I want to do, versus Ken Seals, who does that really well. And he wasn't sure, the coordinator last year wasn't sure if he wanted to do that. So he didn't know if he wanted this or that. And he put that in for this and this in for that. And it kind of got a jumbled mess. I say that to say that this year, I feel like there's an actual plan. I feel like there's we have identity. We have similar guys, similar skill sets, not exactly the same, but similar. You have Nate Johnson, who's really fast, can beat you on the edge, throws really good on the run, and can drive the ball down the field. That's the ideal skill set for this offense. But he's still very raw in his development as a quarterback. That's probably why he's not quarterback one, or going to be. Diego Pavia, not quite as good throwing the ball down the field vertically, but he's a tough downhill runner, has a lot of moxie, a lot of mental toughness, takes command of the huddle, has a lot of intangible stuff that you look for in a quarterback, and knows the system extremely well. So that's probably why he's going to be where he is. And Blaise Berlowitz knows the system really well. Don't know a whole lot about his intangibles, but I think he's good physically. I think he's not quite as fast. I mean, Nate Johnson is exceptionally fast, but not quite as fast as Nate Johnson, but can run. Can run well, not adequately, but can run well. So Nate Johnson, look for him to be a big factor in 2024. That's what I'm anticipating that. I'm anticipating that because of the quarterback run, because of option stuff. I think you're going to see a little bit of Nate Johnson. You're going to see that role grow. There's room for it. Whether, and I'm curious to see, I'm fascinated to see if that's going to happen. That's going to all depend on his development. If we don't see it a whole lot, it means he didn't develop a whole lot in fall camp and he didn't earn that role. So stay tuned for that. But I think that'd be good for Vandy. Think outside the box a little bit, right? So anyway, the Vandyboys, they must have listened to the podcast. They found some power. They take down the Vols. Huge deal. Postseason play. It just they found something. They found some mojo. So we hope they keep it up. We're going to talk about that next. All right. Wouldn't it be great if you could see all of your investment and retirement accounts in one place? With Yahoo Finance, you can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need to tend to your entire portfolio with confidence. So for more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. They are the number one finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original and editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. So you can securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401k and other investments. It's a comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors, and it's how Yahoo Finance ensures you have insight to look at your wealth in its entirety. So with a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. So for comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com. The number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. All right. Are you listening to ESPN or Fox Sports? Are you watching them? Do you have to turn on the TV for all the screaming? Well, I tell you what, you should switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So speaking of which, I've talked for the last, 3 weeks about what is going on with the Vandyboys. Sat up here, was like, okay, the pitching is great. There's some injuries, got to get some guys healthy. The pitching is very all over the place. At home, it's great. On the road, it stinks. All right. The hitting, when I say it stinks, for the most part, it stinks, right? That's what I've been saying for like the last 3 to 4 weeks, right? The hitting is very, very spotty at best. And when it's off, it is off. When it's on, it's on. There's no middle ground. There's no like, this is a solid hitting night. It either stinks or like you're scoring 13 runs. So I said all of that. And I don't know if like, with playoff spots with regional spots on the line, you have a little bit of pressure on you. Maybe that's what Vandy needed. Maybe they needed to, like, I wish they wouldn't have made it so difficult on themselves, but maybe they needed to apply a little pressure because they take down Florida yesterday. Big game. And we had graduation where I was, so I wasn't able to like actually tell you about it. But that game was awesome. Bryce Cunningham came out, pitched debut. They got off to a really good start, hitting the ball as well, and gave themselves enough to hold off the Florida Gators, which that's a really good team, and they should be proud of that. All right. But they get matched up with the Vols, who, for the most part, they had lost 9 straight before they broke the streak, and then they get them again in the SEC tournament. So here's what happens. Alan Espinal went off, dude. He had a pair of home runs. They win 13-4 in the SEC tournament and at the Hoover Met, which I guess is a home away from home because they play really well there. Jonathan Vastine hit a bomb. Braden Holcomb and RJ Austin. They had 3 hits apiece. Like, people were hitting the ball, man. And then the pitching obviously followed suit. Miller Green got 4 innings. Gave up 1 run, had 4 strikeouts. It was good, man. It was a good refresher. It was a good way to kind of get the series back on track with Tennessee as part of the rivalry. That, like, you had those implications going on there. You have like regional seeding possibilities. Like, you went from like, I think with this win, Vandy went from, they were on the bubble, probably going to be one of the last 4 in, to, okay, they're definitely in. And with one more win, they could play themselves into a 3 seed. And if they have a good tournament the rest of the way, they could play themselves into a 2 seed in a regional. They're not going to host one, I think, unless they win the SEC tournament, which that's a tall order. But it's not out of the realm of a possibility. But they've won. The confidence booster now is that they've beaten Tennessee twice in a row now. So that they have a little streak against them. They finally found some power and they figured out just some things at the plate. And honestly, I think it was patience. They jump on mistakes. They force pitchers to throw them, to get pitch counts up, all that good stuff. And I think, playing defense on the other side was really good too. Calvin Hewitt's had a really good tournament too for the Vandyboys. So it's good to see that this team has, I don't want to say has fight in them, because they've always had the fight in them. They've always played hard. That's not been the effort, but I think having the plate discipline to finally be able to get some runs across the plate, whether it's hitting them out of the yard or advancing them by driving the ball places. Like, I think they're finally, seeing the ball a lot better at the plate. They're finally, like what I was complaining about basketball, not taking good shots. I think Vandy's finally taking good swings, getting themselves into favorable counts, and pitching obviously followed suit. And they didn't throw a superstar today. Miller Green, I wouldn't consider Miller Green a superstar, but he is a very, very talented pitcher in his own right, and he can make himself into a superstar by having, a great postseason performance. And it started here with a 4-inning, 1-run effort with 4 strikeouts. Was put him off to a really good postseason start. So this team is exciting. This team is fun to watch. This team is going to be something that teams in the SEC tournament and maybe even the regionals have to reckon with, because what tends to happen in playoff baseball is when you're in crunch time a little bit, the hitting seems to get a little bit tighter, and the emphasis kind of switches over to good pitching. And when your pitching falters in these scenarios, then the hitting gets magnified. So like when a team is hot at the plate, that can potentially get magnified, but it can also, with the tightness of the implications of what they're playing in, like SEC tournament and regionals and beyond, the implications of that creates this tight environment to where now Vandy, the disadvantage that Vandy had down the stretch of the season where they lost 4 straight series because they couldn't hit and score runs, that kind of, I don't want to say it goes off to the wayside because scoring runs is always important and hitting for power and, all that good stuff, and finding that is always important, but it's not as paramount as it was because they've always had good pitching, especially when healthy. And when these guys come out and have good performances and they hit their spots and they throw a heavy baseball, it's always good to see that they can get guys out and that they can pitch comfortably in these scenarios. And when you have these Vandy pitchers are good enough that when they're pitching comfortably, they start getting guys out and they're talented. And talented pitching in the postseason takes over. If you have really good pitching like 1, 2, definitely 2 starters, maybe 3 if you have guys that can go deep into innings and not give up a lot of runs, that's huge in a postseason setting. Happens at the major league level too. You get a good pitcher, they can, they're going to like a good pitcher in a 7-game series is going to probably pitch, I don't know, twice. Like your top 2 guys are probably going to pitch twice in a 7-game series. So like if you have 2 guys, they're just going to those 2 guys are going to pitch a lot, and they're going to be very impactful in postseason play. And if they're on, they're on, and that's going to help you. And that's helping Vandy right now. And I think you're starting to kind of see the advantage, I don't want to say swing back in their favor, but it's sliding that way. So anyway, very interesting week here as Vandy cruises through this tournament, see how they kind of shake things out. But another interesting portion of what's happening is there's this lawsuit, the House versus the NCAA, that we're going to talk about next. All right, this episode is presented by FanDuel. And when I get on FanDuel, I think of the NBA and NHL playoffs. Those things are in full swing right now, okay? And FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, parlays, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make every playoff shot count. And looking at the odds, there's 2 NBA games going on right now. The Indiana Pacers versus the Boston Celtics. That's actually tomorrow. But the Pacers, that's a very interesting series there with the Celtics, but the Mavericks and Timberwolves are something that you should also keep an eye on as well. There's a live bet going on as I'm recording right now, where the Timberwolves it's plus 1.5 is the odds. And so I don't know, man. Like that's an interesting series to bet on. Like I'm gonna take some player props on Anthony Edwards, but like looking at some of the lines for tomorrow night, you have Tyrese Halliburton over under 19.5 points. I would take the over on that. Our very own Aaron Naismith, that plays for the Pacers, his over under is set for 11.5 points as well. So that's it's very interesting bets if you look at it. And FanDuel is definitely America's number one sportsbook, and you should visit, again, Locked On. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make every playoff shot count. So that's going to be very interesting there. All right, here we are, Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. Make sure you check out Locked On SEC, and if you want to be the most educated fan base in the SEC, make sure you check out the other lineup of SEC shows. Just take our schedule and just go right down the row and say, is there a Locked On show for that? And just kind of like listen to that casually after you listen to me. So anyway, the House versus NCAA. What does it mean? Okay. Well, here's what it means. It means that players from early eras are going to receive a settlement. Basically, it's like an NIL settlement. And the NCAA Board of Governors follow the Big 10, Big 12, and ACC in voting to settle in this case and related antitrust cases. Okay. There's going to be potential payout of each program having to pay $300 million over the course of 10 years. Okay. That's going to be kind of the implication. Okay. Key parts of the settlement, including the NCAA paying for more than $2.7 billion in back damages over a decade. About 1.6 of that will be withheld from the schools. Okay. So that's, so think of it as like Vandy. It kind of, the way the numbers break down, it's kind of like a $30 million budget cut for each school. So think about like Vandy operating at $30 million less. Think about what that would mean if Vandy was trying to push through if they were trying to push through these stadium things now versus when they did it before. They wouldn't be able to do it. I think this hurts, man. And we were talking about it. I'm on a show called SEC After Dark, but we were talking about it there, and I think it's going to have some negative implications. Like I think you're going to see some things that some schools were able to do, like your Georgias, your Alabamas will probably be relatively unfazed, but like there's going to be some things at schools like Vandy, Arkansas, those Mississippi State, like those type schools that aren't quite as rich, probably richer than some of the other conferences, but they're not quite as rich as the top tier of the SEC. But there are some things that like Vandy was, probably still looking to do with some facility upgrades, some like NIL packages, and some things that are going to help with their current and future players. And they may not, with this settlement, they may not be able to do it over the next decade. And this could potentially change the whole landscape of college sports, college football, probably not as much, but like college sports. We were talking about the possibility of like sports getting cut that can't fend for itself because of the money that's usually sent to fund those sports from football is not there anymore. So like a lot of your like fringe Olympic sports might go away. Like you might see teams lose like tennis programs, like Vandy's women's bowling might go away. Like this is going to be a mess with Title IX. Like what do you cut? What do you not cut? Like you're going to see schools with a bunch of major sports being cut out. So, like if I'm Vandy soccer, like I'm probably pretty nervous. If I'm a men's soccer program, I'm probably really nervous because you're not a revenue sport. You don't make enough to sustain yourself. This may go to a high school model where like if you want to play a sport at Vanderbilt or any other institution, you're going to have to do a little fundraising on your own. You're going to have to get donors. You're going to have to raise money and not have to rely on football as much, which that's how they do it in high school. Like programs survive on fundraising and, ticket sales and concessions. So they're going to have to find ways to get fans back in the stadium if they want to survive as a sport, because they sure as heck won't be funded by football, or probably won't be funded by football, because that's what's gonna hurt. It's probably going to have a trickle down effect to the G5, to FCS, to Division II, Division III. Probably Division III is going to be. They've already had to get creative with money anyway, with the way they do scholarships and how they fund their programs. But D2 is going to change a little bit. FCS is going to probably change a lot with all of this. There's some other things in play with like roster limits and things that are going to also be interesting as well. But stay tuned with this House settlement and just kind of how it affects Vandy. and how it affects all these other schools with the amount they have to pay out each year. So it's just not. I'm not looking forward to it for any team in the league, even the Georgias of the world. Like, I'm not looking forward to it. It's going to suck. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt the other sports a lot too. I think as you're going to see the biggest impact in some of the other sports. Maybe not so much. Georgia football can go from 180 million to 150 million. That's probably not a big deal, but like them being able to fund Georgia track and field might be a big deal, then be able to, like softball as a sport, like what's going to happen with that, like because of all these settlements and things. So anyway, that's a long and winding road, this House versus NCAA thing and what it means. So just keep reading the stuff. There's going to be way more that comes out about that, but with that payout potentially looming on the horizon, it's not good. It's not good for a lot of ways, but I'm going to leave you there with that. So I'm going to leave you there. There's a lot of articles, ESPN, everybody's writing about it. So go check it out or go read more in depth than what I was able to give you. I just scratched the surface, so to speak. So anyway, that's going to do it for us here on the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. We thank you for listening. If you like what you see, if you like what you hear, please like and subscribe. Find me, support it, and let's rock and roll with this thing. But until tomorrow, anchor down. And we'll see you back here better than ever tomorrow. Peace.